Mother died today, or maybe yesterday, I can't be sure. The telegram from the home says, "Your mother has passed away, funeral tomorrow, deep sympathy," which leaves the matter doubtful. It could have been yesterday. The home for aged persons is at Marengo, some 50 miles from Algiers. With the 2 o'clock bus, I should get there well before nightfall. Then I can spend the night there, keeping the usual vigil beside the body, and be back here by tomorrow evening. I have fixed up with my employer for 2 days' leave. Obviously, under the circumstances, he couldn't refuse. Still, I had the idea he looked annoyed, and I said, without thinking, "Sorry, sir, but it's not my fault, you know." Afterwards, it struck me that I needn't have said that. I had no reason to excuse myself. It was up to him to express his sympathy and so forth. Probably he will do so the day after tomorrow, when he sees me in black. For the present, it's almost as if Mother isn't really dead. The funeral will bring it home to me, put an official seal on it, so to speak. That was the first page of L'Étrange by Albert Camus, The Outsider if you're reading a British translation, or The Stranger if you're reading the American. Camus, a French Algerian, is the second youngest ever winner of the Nobel Prize for Literature. That's all the more amazing because the Second World War delayed his award to 15 years after The Outsider was published. He was just 29 when it was first published. The Outsider is an amazing example of why word choice, the very specific way in which an author expresses their intent, is both incredibly important, but also not all important. This paradox is most apparent in its famous opening line, "Mother died today." In its original French, the line is, "Aujourd'hui, maman est morte." Apologies for my awful pronunciation. The problem is that translating this line into English is surprisingly difficult to do without changing its meaning. Aujourd'hui is uncontentious, today. Morte is also quite uncontentious, died. The problem is this word, maman. That's because in French, everyone from young kids to adults, rich or poor, call their mother maman. This means that in French, the opening line, free from any context, raises questions in the audience about who has lost their mother. The possibility that a child has lost their mother elicits a very different emotional response to an adult. Beyond that, when something happens to our parents, don't we all feel like helpless children again? In its native French, this simple sentence has an incredibly nuanced effect. In English, translators traditionally had a choice between mother, a word usually used by adults, reflecting the actual age of the character, or mummy, which might better evoke that sense of regression to childhood. More modern translators might choose mum if they are British, or mom if American, but the former at least has strong associations with working class dialect, whereas the original French is universal. So again, we change the meaning. We can see from this that in terms of achieving the author's intent, word choice can be incredibly important. When I first read The Outsider, I was 16 or 17 years old, and 2 friends my age had recently lost their parents. Yet when I read the line "Mother died today," I never thought of them saying it. It sounded too formal. So it certainly lost some of the impact that "Aujourd'hui, maman est morte" would have had were I reading in French. For the record, in 2023, the way I would translate the line is, "Mum died today." The emotions which that phrasing would elicit are more important to preserve than the neutrality towards economic class. I still like "Mother died today." It sounds a bit formal, but something about the 2 syllables of mother works well rhythmically. I don't like mummy at all. It's out of keeping with the character, and after an initial impact, the audience would likely view it as a cheap trick to elicit an emotion, and I'm not aware of any translations which actually pick this option. Some translations go for "my mother," but this feels a bit awkward. The sentence order could be switched, to start with "today." Today mother died, but while it more accurately mimics the French word order, it also sounds awkward. The character is supposed to sound like an everyman. So, if word choice in a single sentence is so important, why did I say that it's also not all important? Well, let's revisit 16-year-old me reading this book for the first time. I had never voluntarily read any literary fiction before. I had never heard of Albert Camus before. I only picked up The Outsider to help my girlfriend of the time with a school report. But although its meaning had to a degree been lost in translation, that first line still had me hooked. The uniqueness of the character and the story to follow never let me go. Word choice is important. First lines are important. But a powerful story which delivers on the promise of those first impressions is even more important. So next time you're writing a pivotal line in one of your stories, think about word choice. Think about the most impactful words you can use, but also the most honest words you can use. Think about the words which best express your intent. And if you speak a second language, perhaps try translating them. Find out if there are any hidden implications to explore. You might learn something about your story or your characters which had been lurking in your subconscious. If you haven't read it before and are curious, please do check out The Outsider or The Stranger or L'Étrange or whatever you want to call it. It's a very short and very enjoyable book, even if literary fiction isn't your usual thing. So what do you think about word choice? And what great first pages would you like to see me cover next? Leave a comment down below. And if you enjoyed this video, please support me by making sure you're subscribed to the channel and leaving a like. See you next time, and keep writing.